The way the calibration section works is that you can start, if you look at this image, I can just increase and decrease the saturation of each channel. So if you're in RGB mode, you will have your red primary, green primary, and blue primary here. Now what you can do in each is change the hue of each, and you can boost and decrease the saturation of each channel. Now that, combined with the temperature control, is an extremely powerful tool. Now if you look at this photograph here, let's just reset everything here. This is basically as shot. When I shoot in snow, I tend to shoot in blue and lower temperatures. You can see that there's still not a whole lot of colors happening here. So if you just bring up the shadows just a little bit and bring down the highlights just a little bit, just so that we get that balance a little bit better, so that you can see what is possible here. Now, first thing I do is I go to my calibration, and in conjunction with, like I said, a temperature slider, and what I try to do is I try to introduce a mood into the photograph. So where I'm going with this photograph, the colors are what's important at the beginning. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting the mood, I'm setting the direction of where I'm going to go with this photograph. What was this scene like to me? The scene was a sunset. That sun was going down behind that mountain. It was sort of warm, but it was just a little bit too early, and that sun, I wanted to get that sun just above. I wanted to get that impact, and I want a really high dynamic range scene. But the color is lackluster here. So what can we do before we even start editing to take the whole thing to the next level, so that we set the mood, we set the color right. Let's get it to a point where it's just like there's some color happening, so that we can do our dodging and burning it later. So something like this, I don't want to tell you, bring up the saturation of the red channel, for example. What you want to do is you want to experiment. Every photograph is different depending on what is captured in your red channel, your green channel, and your blue channel. Every photograph is going to be different, so you have to experiment here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to boost the saturation of red and green. I see a lot of blues already, so I'm going to boost the saturation all the way to 100. Now, one thing to remember with the saturation, with the calibration section, the beautiful thing, and why I said it's so powerful, is that it is totally and 100% lossless. That means that if I do anything here, of course, if you're using a raw file and including your temperature slider with the calibration system, whatever you do here, you can max out these numbers. You can just go all the way to the ceiling, no problem. There's going to be no artifacts introduced. This is why this tool is very powerful. So we're just going to max out the saturation here just for the green and the red primary. And then we're going to look at our temperature slider. So bring the temperature up with the tint as well, right? And we're going to change the hue of the red, change the hue of the green. Let's see which works best for us, and change the hue of the red. And it seems like this is giving us a nice balance. And then if I bring up the blues, you see that not a whole lot is happening, because again, this all works in correlation with each other. So if I go and change the blues and the green so much, what happens is that everything is connected to each other. This is why I say experimenting is very important. You only have 3 channels to worry about, so why don't you, experiment? So I'm trying to bring up the saturation of the blues here, and then now if I bring this down to what it was shot, if I don't touch the temperature at all, and I do all the adjustments, look at what's happening here. This is a completely blue and weird file. But as soon as I start bringing the temperature up, look at how it just becomes a completely different photograph, and it's completely natural, and that with a little bit of hue in there, maybe to the magenta side, it gives you a really nice touch. Now again, before and after, this is as shot. This is where we are. We have done nothing here but use our temperature slider, the hue and temperature, and in conjunction with your calibration. And look at what we've done from before and after. Going from this to this is absolutely amazing. Now, let's analyze this photo and see why it is working the way it does. The lighting here is great because that sun is reflecting the light onto my ice surface here. This is great. That's a reflection of color. Even though there is no color, what happens is when we work with the calibration, The lighting is in such a way where it just naturally, it's adding the color exactly where it needs to add it. We're not adding any luminosity masking here. This is just telling the camera, look at your green channel, look at your gray channel, and decrease or increase the saturation of each, therefore giving you a very, very natural look. So if you have a mediocre file that's been shot in a decent light, the light is right, but there's no color, right? And that's the key. That's why I always say, don't worry about colors. Everyone always says, I wish I had colors. No, it's the lighting that you want to pay attention to. You want to make sure that the quality of that light is shaping your composition properly. Other than that, today the power of Lightroom and what you can do is mind-blowing. You don't need colors. You can just recreate all of that. Your job as a photographer is to get out there, get to the best locations at the best possible time, get the best composition. The calibration section, very important and very powerful, and most people overlook. It is not necessarily going to work on every photograph. I can guarantee you one thing: if your lighting is good, if you got texture in the clouds, if your lighting is proper, it'll work, 100%.
Elevate your photo editing skills at the KelbyOne Lightroom Conference. Learn from the experts and transform your photography. Sign up at KelbyOneLive.com.